morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. My guest this morning, Comrade Joe Ajero, who is President of United Labour Congress, General Secretary, National Union of Electricity Employers. You're very welcome, Comrade.
Thank you very much.
Indeed, a pleasure to have you. And Nelson Ekujimi, human rights activist, but no stranger to the matters that we shall be talking about today.
Good morning, it's a pleasure being here.
Good morning, and thank you very much for coming on, Mr. Kujimi.
Thank you.
Let me start with the Comrade, if I could. As President of United Labour Congress, it's one of the main unions that have put the word out there that there will be a general strike, November 6th. This is not the first notice we've had. In fact, we've had it earlier, but maybe there were some ongoing engagements with consideration, but now it seems final, and that's what we want to find out this morning. If it is indeed final, how final it is, if engagements are continuing. And it would seem that we're talking about the minimum wage, whereas Labour wants 50,000. Until I sat down this morning, actually I was a bit behind the news, behind the curve. I was thinking that government has said that 30,000 is what we can come across with. But as of this morning, I understand that actually government has come away from that point of 30,000. Comrade, explain a bit, please.
Well, the 6th date is the final date. And before that date, by next week, 30th precisely, there will be a nationwide protest in all the states, a nationwide outrage and show of anger by Nigerian workers. And it's not negotiable. On the issue of negotiation of the minimum wage.
But everything is negotiable, Comrade.
No.
No?
On the issue of that day of
Can't we just talk about these things?
The issue of protest, that day of protest.
Okay, the protests.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's in the size of our rights, you know. And then on the issue of negotiation of the minimum wage, that has been concluded. And 30,000 naira taken. Very painful to some of us. And I'm among the people that want to apologize to Nigerian workers that we accepted 30,000 as a minimum wage. And that amounts to 1,000 naira per day for a human being. A family of 6 on 1,000 naira a day. That will amount to about 15 naira per meal. No school fees, no house rent. And people are dilly-dallying. So it is so painful that a government that calls itself a government will keep a family of 6 on 1,000 naira a day. Because if you calculate 30,000 naira in a month, I don't know of a family or any individual that lives on 1,000. Having concluded that, a motion moved, adopted, some of the parties signed, and a clean copy was to be produced and forwarded to Mr. President for onward transmission to the National Assembly to enact a law for the Minister of Labour to come out to say no. They were talking of 24,000. It's the greatest insult. Not because he's saying it, but...
Were there any reasons given, Comrade, by which I mean that, first of all, the point you made about 30,000, 1,000 naira a day being unworkable, every Nigerian will understand that. But are there reasons that they gave for you to even accept considering 30,000 coming from the 50,000?
Yeah, the reason was from the private sector. Now, the private sector said each time actions are taken, our businesses suffer. Our businesses are suffering, the power is not working, we pay high charges on gas and other issues. Please, take 30,000. I repeat, please. Because they came up with 3 scenarios, 38, 35, 37. And then private sector said, no, you know, let's take, with a beg, 30,000 was with a beg. And that 30,000 was adopted. The minister, this scenario was brought by the minister in a subcommittee he led and considered. And we said, okay, instead of destroying the private sector, you know, and they say they can't sustain their business based on ABCD, and those that even are importing goods, you know, are making more money than those of them that are producing here. Now let 30,000 be. And that was it. So for the minister to say that the state governments are saying the campaign, the state governments were represented at the tripartite committee. 6 states were represented. The private sector were there, the government was there, Labour was there. So to do this, some of us were not surprised because initially they didn't want the negotiation to conclude. The last 2 days strike was to compel them to reconvene the committee to complete the work. Now, the committee haven't completed their work. They are not telling you that they never agreed on ABCD. I think they are playing with our intelligence.
Okay. Comrade Kujimi, because I don't often use the term, even though it is there, but this is one of those conversations where I can use it. Now, we've heard about the private sector, that as being a potential, an aspect of this whole equation that has to be balanced. And indeed, it was favorably balanced. What do you, before we came on air, you were speaking about the crucial aspect of the states to the success of this whole enterprise. What were you meaning exactly?
Yes, thank you very much. I think the issue about the minimum wage that we have found ourselves now is rather unfortunate, but we must recognize the reality on ground. And the reality on ground is that the arrangement, the new minimum wage committee, comprised 3 legs. It was the government, and when we are talking of the government, we are not talking only about the federal government. Don't forget, we also have the states. Then we have the organized labor, and we have the Employers Consultative Association. So in this aspect, you expect that whatever agreement must have been reached, must have been signed, by all these 3 parties. But it's a fact that as we sit here, in as much as we are not pleased, even if we are going to agree on a 30,000, which I can't confirm because I was never a part of the committee. But the truth of the matter is that if a group of people have sat down and one party is saying, we agreed X, and the other party said, no, we didn't agree X, I believe for the sake of justice, for the sake of adding credibility to whatever story is coming out there to the public, that the 3rd leg of the arrangement needs to come up, with its own position. Also, don't forget, if you say you have agreed to X amount of money, one expects it to have been documented, and that document is what one expects the public to have been availed that, okay, so that will help us convince every other Nigerian that, look, you had an agreement. Why are you now backtracking from what you are? This is your signature. You signed to this. But as at now, what we have in the public space is mere word of mouth. But be that as it may, I think a critical factor in this whole scenario that I want to appeal to all the stakeholders to consider dispassionately is the issue of ability to pay. Because even if the federal government alone, it will not be wise for them to agree on X amount of money without taking into consideration the ability of the states. As we sit down here this morning, over 18 states are owing backlog of salaries. So we need to look at the ability of the states, and we need to take some drastic decisions such that the Nigerian worker will be able to earn a living wage. It's painful that a worker will be what we are hearing now is that they said they agreed 30,000. I hope you can underline that word, they said, because I don't have the facts. My colleague here has spoken as a member of the organized labor. But in this case, if he has spoken from his own side of the wall, you expect the other parties to the agreement to also come out and clarify issues. So for me, I think it is very, very important for us all to go back to the table, and if we have agreed to dot the I's and cross the T's.
All right then. Yes. Comrade Ajero, I imagine Labour, including your good self and your union, would take pretty much just about everything that Comrade Kujimi has said for granted. The whole matter of the ability to pay would have received the long and considered, interrogation by Labour, because surely the ability to pay is important. And how relevant is it to this conversation?
Well, the ability to pay is not an exclusive concept, and you can't hide under the concept of ability to pay people starvation wage forever. And why am I saying this? It is not the only concept considered in negotiation. We consider the cost of living index. Very important. That today, you buy fuel of 30,000 to go to work. How about that? Today, school fees, WAEC or JAMB will cost you this amount. How about that? Today, house rent is this amount. How about that? You bring all these things together in negotiation. And now the issue of ability to pay is not lacking. Everything is brought to the table. Look at your revenue profile. Cut the areas of wastages. You pay more than 30,000. Now he said about 18 states are owing. In all those states, they are not owing any governor salary. They are not owing commissioners. They are not owing the returning of their political aides. They are not owing them. But you are owing somebody, you are paying 18,000. Check the National Assembly. They are not owing them. They are not owing those working in the villa. So you see a deliberate effort, to starve Nigerian workers forever. So the issue of ability to pay is considered. Now look at the issue of wastages. The issue of wastages, you look at the award of contracts. Let me take example with the Minister of Works.
Okay.
You have competent engineers in all the states, in the federal, in all the ministries of work. Now you award contracts for road construction and road maintenance. What do you think you are doing? On a monthly basis, you still pay salary. You can't provide the necessary equipment. In those days, it used to be PWD. Later, now Minister of Work. You check there were people who call road maintenance agency, road makers in those days. Every day they're on road, repairing roads. These days, the public service is not allowed to work. The public sector is not working. Everything is based on contract award. And when you spend all the money on contract award, you now start to tell them there is ability to pay, you don't have money. Now the revenue, apart from oil money, on daily basis we are being told how much is being recovered from the loot, from the Paris Club Fund, from EFCC. What custom was getting before, you can check the records. It has skyrocketed. The inland revenue, what they are getting, it has skyrocketed. What has happened? Cut off the amount you pay to the National Assembly, you pay 50,000 minimum wage.
Okay. So what you're really talking about is if government were to get a lot more efficient than it currently is, then this argument is unnecessary because they will be able to do that.
Clearly.
So there we come to the social aspects. Even if you want the political aspects, even if you want to go further to talk about the political will to do the right thing, all of those kind of things now. Well, we have a problem here because Comrade So, eloquently states the case, but there still is the problem of all those conditions necessary for it to go the way that labor desires are not the kind of things that can be sorted out overnight.
Very true.
But unfortunately, this is not the first time we've come to this juncture.
Well, I think
this is not the first time we've come to this juncture. It's been decades.
Yes, I think we are all culpable in this, in the sense that even labor itself has not been faithful to its responsibility of holding government accountable. Because he spoke now about the award of jobs or contracts. You also look at the psyche of the average worker. You also look at the procedures. What does the law book states?
One moment, please. Forgive me for interrupting you. I'll come straight back. I don't want to miss Lawrence, who has just called in from Agboro to contribute to the subject. I'll come straight back to you. Sorry about that. Good morning, Lawrence.
Hello, Mr. Yori. Good morning.
Thank you for calling in, sir. Good morning.
I greet Mr. Nelson and the labor man.
Good morning.
I think we are not serious in this country. What are we arguing about? We are arguing about 30,000 to worker. What is 30,000? $82.5. $82.5. But one thing I want to tell us, if Nigeria want to move forward, labor need to wake up. One, when you want to put amount a workers to take, you must take consideration, you must hammer on this National Assembly to amend the Constitution to ensure each state have can unleash potential in that state to ensure they show up their revenue. Then number two, they should ensure close all this corruption along the state. States will never tell you they have capacity to pay. Looking at the way all the governors across Nigeria are behaving, they won't tell you. But if Nigeria wants to move forward, in one hand, we discuss true federalism. In another hand, we want the unitary system. Everything should be decided in Abuja. No.
All right.
Lagos State will be able to decide what we pay is what another state. That is my contribution.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for calling in.
Yes, I think in tandem with the position of Lawrence, you look at, like he has rightly identified, you look at the political office holders. It's like they earn a uniform salaries. And if we are really operating a federal system of government, there's nothing that makes it, express that the governor of Lagos State should earn the same salary as the governor of maybe Ondo or maybe Kano State. I think, like he has rightly said, we need to look at our law books. We need to do the needful. He has talked about the wastages in the system. Yes, these wastages have continued to fester because we have all allowed it. You talk about the minimum wage for the average worker. How about the pensioner's wage? Should it be about somebody getting a minimum wage for only when you are working? How about those who have retired from work? Are we saying they don't also deserve a decent living just because they are retired? How about those who are unemployed? How about the vulnerable? So these are all the factors when we are looking at these issues that we ought to take holistically. Because every person we are mentioning here, they are all human beings. As he is sitting down here, he's a worker today. Tomorrow when he gets to the retirement age, he will be a pensioner. So how do we want him to survive with his family?
Okay. One moment, please. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for calling.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your guest.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, I'm happy to see Mr. Ajero in front of you this morning. If it was Mr. Waba, I'm sorry to say I won't make this call. Mr. Ajero, you have pointed out certain things that go to suggest or prove that corruption is the reason why government or state governors cannot pay your proposal. But my question is, why is Labour not going on strike because of corruption? You enumerated some of them. Waste, arbitrary fixing of salaries for public office holders, the inflation of contracts, not being accountable to the people. Those are enough for your union to go on strike and call government officials to order. Why don't you do that? If you were doing that, you will not have the governor, the state governors will not have reason to say, oh, we cannot pay 30,000.
Okay.
But now, you've given them the room to say, we don't have 30,000 because where the 30,000 naira they should have paid you is going, you don't care about that area. This is my question for you this morning. Please, why don't you change your strategy?
All right, then.
Avoid wastages the government can pay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. George. Dovetailing into Mr. George's question, I was going to ask, and I think the two of them are more or less the same. Mr. Lawrence before that has said that Labour needs to wake up. How fair a criticism is that, as well as Mr. George's observation? Yeah,
I think they are right. I'm not here to exonerate Labour from the decadence in the society. First, Labour passed through a traumatic experience during the military era, first and foremost. That one is established. And we are recovering. You know, people in Labour are still like people in other facets. And that one is clear. However, if you go through our rules, you notice that some of the things we do are dependent on others. We are not supposed to go on strike because of corruption. But the effect of corruption now, as it affects the non-payment on inability.
When you say we're not supposed to go on strike because of corruption, for instance.
For instance, corruption is just a concept. This man is corrupt. And by our law, the person is still seen as innocent until proven guilty.
But when they talk about the endemic corruption in Nigeria,
yes.
The president talks about it, the whole world talks about it, we all talk about it.
Even the people arrested are still innocent until the courts find them guilty. So labor will not jump up to say...
So technically, I understand what you're saying. So technically, there's no corruption on that scale.
Well, until...
Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying. You see, the issue, what I'm saying is that when you say these people are corrupt...
But why is labor not protesting
Why
the
can
state of corruption in Nigeria?
If labor is going on strike for corruption, it means labor has already passed judgments.
Yes. The courts are there
Yeah.
to treat the issues bordering on corruption. But when the issues on corruption affect the payment of our salaries,
Okay.
now this is where you are seeing now. The issue of corruption is affecting probably the implementation of 30,000 naira minimum wage.
Even if the corruption has not been proved, it is still affecting.
Yes, but you don't take action based on that. You don't preempt the courts. You know, I think this is so intricate, and we have to follow it that way. Yeah, and secondly, the government that said they are fighting corruption seem to try to tie the hands of labor to interfere a lot. Now, just as we are demanding for 30,000 naira minimum wage, they just rushed to announce that no work, no pay, because they were expecting that labor will go on strike. Now, they are not threatening labor that no work, no pay, and that all labor, their tenure in office must be two terms. As if, as a non-governmental agency, they determine their rules. Government doesn't determine their rules. And you are not considering no pay, no work. Because in the states that they are not paying, why should there be work? And you are not considering no pay, no vote. These are issues we are going to magnify in the next few days. So because labor have asked for something, you are trying to tie their hands. In this country, some labor unions have been proscribed one way or the other, their leaders removed because they want to fight. So if a government is equally attacking labor and you expect labor to fight against corruption, then government has a lot to say about why it is protecting corruption.
Nelson, it's an interesting point that he makes that, look, government is saying no work, no pay, and they see that as a subtle threat. Perhaps not so subtle. Without considering, okay, no pay, no work. President Buhari said that he can't understand why some governors or how some governors can sleep at night.
Yes.
You know.
You see, looking at the last policy statement of the government, for me, it's laughable in the sense that if the government has, enacted a policy that no pay, no work, no pay, you also want to ask, what is the fate of the worker who has been coming to work and has been owed 6 months or even a month's salary? It means the government, is being injurious to unleashing injustice on the worker. So for me, that policy needs to be rejigged. It's not acceptable, even according to what international labor laws, that because the right to go on strike is a fundamental right.
Indeed.
You can't take it away.
One moment, please. Kennedy,
yes.
In Port Harcourt. Good morning.
Yes, very well. Good morning, Mr. Yori, and your special, very amiable guest on the studio.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Sorry. A moment ago, I'm just about to digress before I come back to why. A moment ago, somebody said labor is not supposed to be striking over minimum wage. Instead, they should be striking over the issue of corruption in the system. What I am actually going to ask on the reverse is, if at all labor should be going on such strike, the minimum wage issue, even if they strike from now till next year, whenever, if the money is not available for the state governors to pay, the money is not available for the state governors to pay. Going on strike will even go on to worsen the already precarious situation in the system. So even if at all, my advice, labor should be going on strike. Labor should be going on strike based on the colossal amount of salaries and emolument and service charge these so-called office holders and legislators and whatever they have collect at the end of the month. That in itself, if you ask me, with all due respect, I would call that outright robbing of the people. The legislators, the House of Representatives, but if at all labor should be going on strike for this issue, I am sure this is the reason why labor should be going on strike. Why should they be collecting so much? And the people who are at the down of the ladder, who does the work, are being paid next to nothing. So if at all labor should be going on strike, I think that is the reason why labor should be going on strike, to hold those people accountable accountable that, look, come, what you will collect at the end of the month is way too much. You should cut it down. Otherwise, we'll shut down the country. That is the reason why labor should go on strike. Thank you very much, sir.
Indeed. Thank you very much for calling in. Comrade Joe, this is interesting. Kicking off with Mr. George saying that Labour might be striking for corruption, then we'll know they mean business. Now we've heard your commentary on that. The other aspect is that everybody says about the ridiculous salaries that especially our national legislators, for example, that they get. And we all talk, there'll be a lot of grammar, we talk about it, but it hasn't gotten as serious as for us to say, you know, this is unconscionable. It just doesn't work in this environment. We're going to protest it. I don't know, people, you have something of a think tank here. I know Labour has its own intellectuals as well, and that it would have considered all of these options. But what do you think about that particular idea, which goes back to what Mr. George said at the beginning, although he was saying that strike for corruption, this is another variant.
Well, if you look at it, who is paying the legislators?
We are.
Who?
We the people.
What I mean, who is paying them? The money is coming from probably Federation account.
Okay, yes.
And Mr. President pays them.
Yes, it's our money.
Okay, Labour doesn't negotiate their salaries. And you don't take away the right of an individual who wants to work in a place to say, I want to collect this.
Yes.
In terms of contract of employment. But theirs is not employment. They were elected. Now they should key into an amount approved for legislators. And that's why I'm asking who approved this amount they are collecting. Now if Mr. President is comfortable with what they are collecting, and this amount is approved, and is not comfortable with 30,000 for a worker, then there's a problem, there's a double dealing. Now, I could have suggested that you bring the earning of the National Assembly to negotiation table. And it's important. They collect minimum wage, even if their own is going to be higher. And that their sitting should be part-time. Now, because there's a lot of issues raised by Mr. President on the issue of no work, no pay. For you to be on recess for 75 days is no work. You don't earn a salary for that. Never. For you to be on vacation leave or medical leave for 100 days, you don't earn a kobo because it's no work, no pay. So these standards must be maintained.
Yeah, but these are some of the policy difficulties that we have in this.
So the legislators can be they can be beyond the law. So we should be able to define, even bring it to public scrutiny, what is a legislator supposed to collect, and you pay him. But when you pay a legislator a certain amount, on your own, you approve it, and you pay another worker small money on your own, then there's a problem.
Okay.
And if they are allowed to fix their own pay, I think it's corruption in itself.
Yakub in Dokwemo, I'll come to you. Good morning, Yakub.
Yeah, good morning, Shijori, and then good morning to Mr. Kujimi and then comrade in the studio. Quickly, Shijori, I think I dare disagree with a comrade in the studio. For one statement I just made now is that if Mr. President agrees to pay such amount to the legislature, and then, in the other hand, he did not agree to pay small amount of money, it is not right. It is not right because I want to call on Labour. Labour are the people, are their enemy of themselves. Why am I saying that? There was a time in this country that Senator Shehu Sani made mention that one senator is taking 13.5 million running costs to house every month. And then Referendum Physical and Mobilization Commission, if I'm right, come out and say that those money was not paid by them. And that is corruption in the system. And then the comrade in the studio says that they cannot go on strike because of the corruption. Then this money, 13.5 million running for that was not known to law. Why Labour not go to strike on that very particular issue? Even those civil society organizations that Mr. Ekujimi belong to, they are also silent on this issue. Up to today, they are still taking this amount of money that she was only saying. And then why Nigerian citizens are handless? And then we cannot do anything. We rely on Labour and then civil society organizations to help Nigerian citizens. And then the comrade in the studio telling us that they can go on strike on because of corruption or whatever. I just disagree with him. Thank you and God bless you, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll go to a break now. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere, please. Okay, still in the studio with Comrade Joe Ajaero, who is General Secretary of the National Union of Electricity Employers and indeed President of the United Labour Congress. He has said that it's not negotiable. November 6th, government is trying to give Labour the runaround, and that's not a new story. This has been happening, according to Labour leaders, for ages. And if you were with us at the top of the program, maybe you knew it before, there had already been an agreement for 30,000 naira, and then at the last point, according to Labour, government says through the minister that it's 24,000. All bets are now off. No negotiation. And Comrade Ajaero did say that even before the November 6th date, there would be a sort of something of a sensitization protest as well. People, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that what we're talking about is this particular reiteration of the story that we've been having. The minimum wage cannot simply take any Nigerian home.
Very true, very true.
Yes.
But I think I want to make a clarification. Comrade Ajaero here said Mr. President agrees to pay the legislators. That is not correct. The legislators' pay is not approved by Mr. President. It's from the Revenue, Fiscal and Mobilization Committee. Also,
and those are the people they say set their salary.
Yes.
We are innocent.
So, Mr.
What do you want us to do?
So we must be very clear about the fact that we operate a constitutional democracy in which the functions of various arms or institutions of government are clearly spelled out. Mr. President does not have any say
clearly
that.
spelled out doesn't always mean...
No, hold on.
It doesn't always mean strictly followed.
It doesn't mean strictly followed, yes, I agree. But also we must recognize the fact that on this issue of the new minimum wage, the disagreement, I don't think Mr. President has said, I'm not going to sign. What is on ground now is that the minister has said, because the minister is the representative of the president, the minister is to brief his boss about what has transpired at the meeting. And if Labour has said, we have agreed 30,000 because of consideration of so many other factors, and the minister, as a representative of the government, is saying otherwise, I think it behoves on us, the public, to even ask for a view of the document that was signed to agree on X amount that, should be paid. So I think we need to get that very clear.
Okay, one moment, just before you go in, Comrade Ajaero, let's hear the minister.
We have a figure of the federal government, and the state governments have theirs. The state government figure as the last time was 20,000. The federal government had a figure of 24,000, and that was where we all stood. And this negotiation took into account these irreducible offers from the different governments, but we could not arrive at a consensus. Even though we adjourned our meeting and said we'll put up a report that will reflect this position, we are still continuing to discuss.
Okay. Yes, Comrade.
Well, let me first of all clear something. When I say Mr. President takes responsibility, if you are telling me that money moves out of this economy, out of the Federation account or any source, without Mr. President's approval, I doubt it. Now, let's even assume that the legislature were collecting their money without approval, because the revenue and physical, whatever, has said it is not from us. We didn't approve it. And they're collecting money. It is not within the powers of Mr. Ajaero to find out how that money, I think Mr. President is in charge. Now, coming back to what the Honorable Minister was saying a couple of minutes ago, this negotiation that has lasted for 8 to 9 months, and then every group came with their offer. The United Labour Congress of Nigeria, which I happen to be the president, came with 96,000 naira minimum wage. The NLC, TUC, others came with about 65,000 naira minimum wage. Negotiations started. Some governors came with 25, some came with 20, and we started harmonizing. The NECA came with 35, 30, and after 8 months, we go to, they adjoin Senedai. That's the Honorable Minister. Based on that, Labour went on strike. Because adjoining Senedai is that you can't reopen this again until after election or thereabout. 2 days action, they said, okay, reconvene 4th and 5th and complete this work. And at the end of that discussion, and as I have stated earlier, he's now still bringing the issues that people brought at the beginning of negotiation.
Okay.
You can see
because
that
because he says, as you heard, we were not able to reach consensus.
But I was saying, I said here earlier that there was a motion moved, seconded, no counter, and it was agreed. And he was saying that they agreed for a report. That report, some people have signed, and they now say, let us get a clean copy, so that the day we are taking it to Mr. President, everybody will sign his own column. No more meeting. Now, for your information, there is a chairman, these people, of the tripartite committee that was appointed. I want the chairman to talk, because government appointed the chairman. The chairman is keeping quiet to now say whether they met, whether they have finished their assignment, and if you say they have compiled their report, they are forwarding to Mr. President, does that mean that negotiation is continuing when a committee is compiling their report to Mr. President? So there's a lot of, misinformation on this, and I think, he's not helping the government on this issue.
Well, as you said, Nelson, that's the president right there. He's the minister, but working is part of the president's cabinet, and so he's representative of the presidency. So it is a complex one.
It's a very complex
but in the meantime, Comrade Ayo Inoshogbo, good morning.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you very much, Uncle Yori. See, I am not saying Labour should not agitate for a minimum wage, taking into cognizance the current reality, the economic reality. But you see, even if the minimum wage is raised to 100,000, we will still come back to the same issue, the same problem that the money is not enough. Because there are some things we spend money on, which ordinarily we don't ought to spend up to what we spend currently. Take, for instance, do you know how much parents pay to send their wards to private schools? If the public schools are adequate and we can get qualitative education from the public school and it is free, why do we have to go to the private to take our children to private schools? Why do we have to go to private hospitals when government hospitals are adequate? There are drugs, there are equipment there. Why do we have to spend money on that? So these are the things Labour should agitate for first. If they agitate for that, that will improve our standard of living and reduce our cost of living. Even if you are agitating for a minimum wage of 15,000 naira, it will still be enough.
All right then.
God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much for calling in, comrade. And I would also have added that among the things that we spend money on that we shouldn't ordinarily spend money on is something that concerns Comrade Joe himself, electricity. You are billing people, poor people, that can hardly feed ridiculous. Somebody in one room is getting a 25,000 naira electricity bill.
Let me come to that.
And so on and so forth.
Yeah, let me come to that. You see, from what he said, the nature of the state we operate is very, very fundamental. Nigeria is not quite disposed to running a welfare state. And I am coming, because Nigeria has gone to the market and they're being controlled by market forces. Every Nigerian will tell you what some of us pass through at the expense of our life to say, don't privatize.
But sir, sorry to interrupt you. A very simplistic question, very, very simplistic. Ordinary people said, give me a meter so that I can pay what I consume.
I'm coming.
And
it's part of the policy.
NEPA says, well,
discourse.
Yes. NEPAs are not available so that spurious bills can be sent on a monthly basis.
There is no state that will privatize without taking cognizance of the instrument for measure. Even Gary sold in the market, you have a cup to measure it. Everything.
Okay.
But Nigerian government privatize without metering the system. That is one. Two, you can be talking of minimum wage of 5,000 if you have a welfare policy that you have free transport, you have housing, you have
health.
Hospital, that is health, you have education. Then what is remaining? You have old men benefit. if you have all this, then you can be talking of minimum wage, will not be talking of thousand. You don't have any of this.
Okay.
The individual will do it for himself.
Okay, I don't want to lose Miriam in Apapa. Good morning, Miriam.
Good morning, Uncle Yori. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you very much for calling in.
This is actually very shameful and very unacceptable. You see, I think that a worker deserves his or her wage, and this is a constitutional issue. When last was this reviewed? Is this something that is supposed to be done? The answer is yes. Why are we rigmaroling thinking about it? Why are they giving excuses? Some people are going to argue that even with 18,000, a lot of states are not paying. If they are not paying, should we now reduce the money from 18,000 to 16,000? Because if we ask them, they probably will say they can only pay 5,000. So should we now reduce it to 5,000 so that we can support them? I think as the day goes on, we are beginning to see who our real enemies are, and they are the politicians. They are destroying the entire system, and they are dehumanizing the humans in the system. If I am working, I expect that my salary should be reviewed over a certain period of time. And there is no room for debate. The only thing we should be debating now is what are the reasons these states are giving for not being able to pay? They will tell you they don't have money. You don't have money, but you still maintain the same standard you have always maintained. Nothing is changing in the legislative arm. Nothing is changing in the executive arm. You still fly your private jets. You still keep unnecessary number of legislators who don't do anything. They just sit down there and sing songs and put on Facebook for us and become comedians, and we pay them such huge amounts of money. We're talking of allowances. And then you sit down there and tell us, some will even tell you that our civil servants are not working. They are not working because the system is bad. The system is destroyed. So people go to office and sit down and do nothing. So I think we know our enemies now. The politicians, the governors, they are our enemies. Oh. If you say there's no money to pay these people, why are you spending so much money to buy forms from your parties to go for these same places where you say you will go and suffer? There's no money in the state. Don't go and contest. Sit down at home. So it means that there is somebody is lying to us, and we need to know who. And they are the governors and the politicians. I think we need to experience the kind of strike we had in the subsidy of January 1st during the Jonathan time. We need to go through that process again. It stands still. It's not this kind of this they are doing and workers, bankers to go to work. No, we all need to be involved. Whether you are a civil servant, whether we are labor or not, I think something has to happen. And these politicians will listen to us. Thank you.
All right then. Thank you very much, Miriam. You know, sometimes when analysts, you know, even very cerebral ones, when they're talking about this matter, sometimes they just, in frustration, blurt out, this government is so wicked. It has been said now, it has been said of every government in recent memory.
Very true, very true.
You know,
very true, yeah.
You suddenly see somebody who has been coming along saying, but it's because of the inconsistencies that Miriam was even talking about there that have also been spoken about before. It doesn't look as if we really want to come to grips with the issue once and for all.
Well, unfortunately, I want to disagree with Miriam that the politicians are enemies. I think we are the enemies of ourselves, because when you talk about these politicians, I want to ask, is any of those politicians from the moon or from the sun? They are members of our family. So the issue at hand now is this issue of minimum wage. One would expect, like I said earlier on, I don't expect Labour to just be looking...
Sorry, sir. That where Comrade Ajero started off by saying that ability to pay is one thing, but it's not the only thing.
Yes.
It's not the only thing. There are so many other factors around all of that.
You agree with me that even as we sit here, if we agree 30,000 naira minimum wage today, these other indices, if they are not taken care of, which he mentioned, these other indices will eat into that money, that at the end of the day, the value of the 30,000 will be nothing to write home about. You look at the issue of transportation, you look at the issue of health, the issue of education, the issue of accommodation.
No, but still, you just ram it down the labor's throat, so to speak, knowing full well that it doesn't do anything And people are going to have to find other means.
Yes.
And here we are fighting against corruption. You know,
that is...
let me bring in Obi Eze in Isolo. Good morning, Obi.
Hello, good morning.
Oh, good morning. Mr. Eze, good morning.
Yeah, morning.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, please, what happened is that our government, they believe that we, the citizens, we don't know anything. One is that when they are discussing when they're trying to talk about the minimum wage, the minister are supposed to know that first the amount the federal government want to pay, not telling the people or telling us what a private company in the solo will pay, what state government is going to pay. Let them agree on what federal government is paying. So people that work in federal government, this is what they have agreed.
Okay, Mr. Eze,
can now go to state and talk to the state. Then the state will talk exactly what they want to pay. Then later they can go to individual companies, private companies. Then they negotiate. Not that you'll be negotiating for state, negotiating for individual market woman that's selling pepper that you need an assistant.
Okay.
Okay,
Mr. Eze.
Telling them the price.
We get you, Mr. Eze. And thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you very much.
So, like I was saying, these other indices that will hit into that will depreciate whatever value you get. I think it is important for us at this stage because somebody said whether they go on strike from now till November or till next year or what have you. I think this issue on ground now is not an issue for labor alone. It's a collective issue that we need to call those at the end of our affairs, and we all have to sit down and say, look, how can the worker be earning 18,000 naira while a senator who sits probably twice in a week earns as much as 35 million naira per month? So we need to look at what are those indices that are supposed to make life meaningful for the citizenry.
Indeed.
Are we addressing the challenges we have in those aspects of our life? Because such that I remember vividly well, in a time past in the life of this country, people earning maybe 150 naira per month were buying brand new cars. But today, somebody earning even 150,000 naira is buying a Tokumbo or a fairly used vehicle. So these are the indices we need to look at. In those days, as I'm sitting down here, when you go on the road, public taps, public water works, you just bend there and you start drinking water from your palm.
Indeed. Pastor Lazarus in Kaduna, good morning, sir.
Good morning, thank you very much.
Please go ahead.
Yes, this is a very interesting topic that is going on. Concerning Nigeria, I want to say clearly that it's a very shameful situation. The reason is because when you look at the government, you will realize that we have crops of leaders who come to play, but they don't really prepare before coming for elected positions. I believe that the world is looking at us as a very shameful state where people just come without a clear-cut policies that they want for a nation, for its people. If that's not the case, we have from the beginning when this particular government came up, it spoke about education, school being free. It spoke about health. And just like somebody mentioned there, he said that even if they give 100,000, 200,000, it will still not meet up because Nigeria is a capitalist state where people will come with forces of market to lift up their prices and this money will still not meet up. But if our schools are okay, if our hospitals are okay, and we can access these things at the dearest little money, and you can realize that people come to become governors, they don't have any clear cut. They say they don't know how to raise revenue. If you are buying cars and they cannot pay tax for those cars, if you are building houses, mansions, one person having 20 mansions cannot pay tax for them, having 20 cars cannot pay tax for them, then how do we generate this income? How do we raise money? They just come to sit there because they know that the federal government is going to share allocation for them, and they share within their own families while workers are suffering. This is so shameful that every day we are discussing this on the national TV, and they are watching us on the world, connecting via on network to watch us, and we are saying all of this continually, and the government is doing nothing about it continually. Labor deserve what they deserve. The Bible says, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, give to God what belongs to God. The government needs their own. The labor has given them. Give labor also what belongs to them.
Okay.
And this is not about labor. It's about Nigeria. It's about me. It's about people who are not even in the public work. It's for everybody.
Exactly.
Because if it works, the Nigerian nation becomes good and prosperous.
Thank you very much, Pastor Lazarus, for calling in. And another aspect of this whole thing we're talking about. Look, we don't talk about it often enough. This whole situation that we're talking about here, our youth, we've always had Nigerians all over the world working. But now our youths are going out in droves. They've just given up. They've listened to all the arguments, hoping it's going to be better. And then suddenly this same argument has been going on for God knows how long. Now our youths are going everywhere. They're going to the UK if they can, Canada, and mostly they're economic exiles. People are going abroad and are now doing menial jobs. Not all of them, but menial jobs that still is much better than an educated job here. These are consequences.
It's not only the menial jobs, the risk to human life.
Yeah. Yet here we are. Well, Labour says it's going on strike on the 6th of November for. You know, there have been criticisms too, because we've heard them in this program this morning. But, comrade, you wanted to come in. You said there will be a strike before then.
Yeah, well, what I say is that there will be a national protest before then.
A protest?
Yeah, but you see, a lot of people who have been saying, Labour, look up to you, Labour, sit up. Labour has been at the receiving end. If I tell you what has happened from 1999 to date, especially during the fuel price increases protests, you know, we lost human beings, material and human beings. In few occasions at Ojole were there, you know, 2 or 3 people standing with me, we are gone down to their families and whatever. Nobody cares. The Nigerians don't care.
That's scary.
Now, if you pay a living wage, you reignite the economy. If you increase the purchasing power of the worker.
But government wants to pay. I mean, going by the president's, plan, and they want to pay.
They want to pay what?
A living wage.
You can't say 30,000 naira is a living wage.
Yeah, right. Andy in Adamawa. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Okay. Go right ahead, please.
Okay, please. I have been listening to you people. What I want to contribute is that. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. What I want to contribute is that the Labour betrayed the nation by calling off the strike when they know that they have not even agreed with the federal government. So they betrayed the nation by calling off the strike when they know that the 30,000 naira minimum wage is not enough for the government, for the nation. That is my contribution.
That Labour should call off the strike.
No. They betrayed the workers
by
calling off the strike when they know that they have not even agreed with the federal government.
Okay.
It's the going straight to that. The strike was called to reconvene the committee because at that time, no agreement. We didn't come out then to say 30,000 or 10,000, whatever. There was no agreement. So when government adjourned saying it high, it's like they wanted to disband the committee. We went on a strike. 2 days later, government fixed 4th and 5th date for the conclusion of the committee. And it was at that meeting that the issue of 30,000 came up. So Labour didn't call off strike, based on any figure. The purpose for the strike was achieved, and the committee reconvened.
Well, I think we're going to have to leave it there. Apart from the question about, it's not really over till it's over. I mean, there still is time. Something can still happen that will make Labour say, okay, we're slightly relieved, therefore.
Yeah, that is when Mr. President forced it to the National Assembly to enact it into law, the 30,000 or more.
That's because the irreducible minimum that Labour is demanding.
When you look at it by the name, it's a benchmark.
Yeah, it doesn't. You can be
for
higher.
Which people can go. So when people talk of this state negotiate, if you don't do that, you don't protect the people.
All right then. Well, we've completely run out of time. Thank you very much, Comrade Nelson Ekujimi, as well. Thank you very much, and Comrade Joe Ajaero. Wish you all the best and hope that it's not too late. There still could be a resolution because even Labour is aware that its strikes are disruptive and they go there only when they feel that there are no other options, right? Thank you very much for coming on, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
And so that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.